Hello and welcome to another installment of Life with the McLaren 12C. I am just about 1 year into ownership, maybe 1 or 2 weeks shy. And I gotta say, for the most part, it's been a very uneventful experience with the car. I had a few problems early on in the first couple of months, and I really believe those were due to lack of regular driving of the car. I did have the extended warranty that I do not plan to extend for the simple fact that the warranty work that was performed was relatively minor, and I could have sorted those problems out on my own at a fraction of the cost of what the dealer charged. I did see the invoice. It was relatively high, but that's expected with any kind of service or repairs performed through a McLaren dealer. What you see today is I'm disassembling a lot of the rear section of the car. I'm going to be changing out the pipes. Since my warranty has expired, I'm going to go ahead and run straight pipes, and within a week or two after installing the pipes, I will send the ECU off for a stage 2 tune. And that tune would be for the aftermarket race pipes, the aftermarket air filter that I installed last year, and 93 octane fuel. What I'm going to try to do is touch base on some of the little details of what's involved in changing out the downpipes. Of course, I've never performed it before. It's a very common mod on these cars, so I don't expect it to be too involved. As you can see, after elevating the car and removing the wheels, you have to remove the wheel liners, and then you can see the primary catalytic converter right here, the two O2 sensors. There's one harness, and the other harness kind of snakes around this section of the frame. There's a whole lot more involved in it as far as panel removals on this car. After the wheel liners are out, you can see here I've already removed the spoiler. I'll have to remove this rear deck. A lot of what I'm going to do is very similar to what I outlined in an earlier video when I changed out the exhaust to the Sport. Ironically, because of the pipes I'm putting on, being that they won't have any kind of catalytic converter or any sort of resonating or noise dampening, I will be reinstalling the OEM section that has the resonator box. I've been reading and hearing that the Sport exhaust creates a lot of rasp and a really obnoxious drone at around 5,000 RPMs. I'm going to give the original stock section a try and see how that pans out. So here it is. I have all the covers removed. I'd forgotten how difficult it is to remove the carbon engine covers that are on the left and right. It's extremely difficult to remove those without damaging or scratching anything because of the carbon fiber being so rigid. And now you can see this is the Sport exhaust I added. It wasn't factory on this car. This is an this is a factory option from McLaren. It's just an H-pipe. So with that said, from the factory, when you get the Sport exhaust option, all you have is 4 catalytic converters for your muffler, which is why I'm going to put my original resonated one on. By removing the mufflers, it's essentially going to be straight pipe. The only thing that would mute any of the exhaust noise would be the turbochargers. While having the covers off, I was able to peer back into the radiator, and I did isolate a really small coolant leak I noticed over the winter. From the colder, freezing temps of winter and the car is sitting, one of the hoses loosened up. I'd noticed I would get a small collection of coolant right here on the lift. Looked a little further around, I could see that it was weeping somewhere from the radiator. I didn't suspect it was the radiator. Now here you can see this is raining down a little bit. It's actually a small supply hose. It's It's a hose that supplies other parts of the cooling system. See it right back in here. There's evidence of it weeping, and it does have that original crimp clamp, or the clips, the little crimp clips that are known to cause many leaks on McLaren automobiles. I'm going to replace that with a standard clamp and do the same on the other side, and that'll get rid of the little pesky coolant leak I've had. Since the weather's been warm, the leak went away, but I do know that it will be back in the winter, so I'm gonna go ahead and correct it now while I have everything out. I don't really know what else I need to remove other than the catback section right here, and then that should allow me to remove this one exhaust hanger and then one clamp at the turbo, and I should be able to pull the downpipes out. One thing I don't know is if I can pull the downpipes out with O2 sensors still attached. I'm hoping I can, because access to the O2 sensors is really tight. As you can see right here, you can get a wrench on them, but unfortunately the socket I have is not tall enough to accommodate these unusual sensors they're using. I'm going to point out something here involving the band clamps holding the downpipe to the turbo. You can see here just past the O2 sensor there is a bolt there. There's also one at the bottom. Right here, there's one at the bottom. It's a little tight getting to it. As you can see, I was able to use a 1/4" ratchet with an 11mm socket to loosen it. These things aren't on there crazy tight. They don't need to be, because of the way the fitting is designed to press together when the clamp is tightened up. Like always, I hate factory exhaust. The stuff is packed in tighter than sardines. Okay, O2 sensors do need to come out. I guess they should have been obvious right out of the gate just because of how tight everything sits in here. The socket I had, it did end up working. It's a very cheap 7/8 O2 sensor socket. Give you a nice little peek down here exactly how tight everything is in there. I still got to try to wrestle this thing out. The other side I managed to get completely loose. There's a lot more room to work with up in here, and that's when I realized that there is absolutely no way you're going to get these out with the O2 sensor on. Well, either O2 sensor. That's what the V-clamp looks like. And there is a gasket in there. I plan to reuse that. Alright, and here's a really nice comparison of the standard exhaust with the resonator, or I guess you'd call it a muffler, versus the optional sport exhaust. Sport exhaust is much lighter, but since having the car straight piped is not really all that desirable to me, I'm going to go back with the standard exhaust. I'm thinking, coupled with the downpipe, the Catless downpipes, it's still going to be really loud, but it should be a little more muted compared to just going with that. I have heard that an X-pipe design, it gets rid of most, if not all, of the rasp and resonance, but there again, I'm going to have to shell out $2,500 on a piece of exhaust that's not going to really do a whole lot for the performance. This thing still is, for the most part, a straight through design. It just has some perforation and packing in here to reduce some of the noise. The factory downpipes with the catalytic converters are now out. I did learn that you have to remove the heat shields while they are still in the car. problem is with the heat shield, it makes the whole assembly too large and you can't manipulate and get it out of the engine bay. As you can see here with it removed, it's a really tight area. Dissecting the catalytic converter inside the car really wasn't that difficult. It takes a little bit of manipulation to move everything around a bit. In addition to that, I did have to remove vent tube here that goes from the cooling fan to the AC compressor. So that's nothing more than just a vent pipe. Removing it gives you a lot more access. It's interesting having the engine covers off. I was able to find a couple of other problem areas. I noticed that down in here to this air box, there's several screws backed out. Also found a couple of original clips that had not been replaced. These are the factory clips known to leak. There's several throughout the car here I'm going to replace while I have the covers off. Alright, both of the new pipes are in. Not a terrible job to put the new ones in. It would be easier with a second pair of hands. Next up is the catback system. The catback is on, O2 sensor is reinstalled. It's time to fire it up and make sure there are no leaks. I just finished putting the last two panels back under the car. Now it's time to drop it down. So I just took it for a nice little test drive, and to my surprise, the car is not obnoxiously loud. I had thought for certain putting straight pipes on it would be just over the top obnoxious. Putting the original resonated catback back on was definitely smart. I've heard with the sport catback there's a lot of rasp and a lot of drone. I didn't hear any of that. I do apologize for not having any driving video. I really haven't come up with a mounting system I'm happy with for my camera. Driving on the highway, it really didn't sound any louder. I still listen to the radio, definitely getting on it, full throttle, going under an overpass. It's insanely loud. It's like an F1 car. So I think I've hit a really good balance between volume and tone and sound. It's definitely not too much. Part of me is curious. I'd like to know what it would sound like with the sport catback on there. I really don't want to go through the trouble to change it out just to make it loud and know that it's going to have an undesirable rasp and drone. I do appreciate everyone out there who's followed me thus far, and thank you for watching this video.